I wanted to talk about the Woody Allen case, because we're very detached from that. There's no emotion from us. We don't know them. We're not invested. So we can talk about it really objectively, and we can pick out any things that we think resonate with our stories, but we can also look at whether or not, do we think it is parental alienation? What do we think's going on? And generally just kind of have a general discussion about it. We're not here to play judge and jury. We are simply here to have a discussion around the issues, and I'll talk about the things that I would be looking for and things that in the case concern me. But like I say, there's so much information that we don't know that we're certainly not able to say who's right, who's wrong, what really happened. Only the people involved know the truth of it. So let's start off with the obvious fact that we have that clear separation of a family. We have Dylan and Farrow, and I believe one other child on this side, and then you have Woody and other children on this side, and they have clear opposing opinions of one another. There is no... Sorry, my dog's just going mental. Their opinions are absolutely opposite of one another. They believe that it happened. They believe that it didn't. And this is exactly what happens in parental alienation cases, isn't it? It's you have one party who are aligned, child is aligned with the parent, and they 100% believe that this happened, and then on the other side you have a parent and potentially other siblings who say no, absolutely it didn't happen, and there's no middle ground there. It literally does strip a family in two. So that's the first similarity, is that separation. The other things that I've noticed when looking through it is, obviously I know Alan has made quite a few suggestions that Dylan was coached to say this, and that actually no evidence was ever found. 2 hospitals conducted their own investigations and no evidence was found of any abuse taking place. I've watched the interview with Dylan herself, who speaks very well, who speaks very eloquently about what happened, is very emotional when she talks about it, and I have to say, if I was watching that and that alone, I may well go with that. I might believe her, because she is very believable in her stories. So that throws up the question of, was she not just coached? Was there the false memory being implanted here? Was Mia giving her a story, and by getting her to constantly retell it over the years, she's told it. It's been documented how many times she's told this story, that we know that the retelling of a story impacts it more into your brain and makes it seem more and more real. So is that why she now, as a 32-year-old woman, sounds incredibly plausible? Because actually she's had 25 years of telling this story. Is that what's happening? Like I said, it's not for us to say exactly what is going on. I'm merely just throwing up some of the parental alienation points that stuck out to me. You've also got the very interesting family system setup that went on prior to Dylan. Yeah, I haven't actually read Alec Baldwin's story, Donald, but I know that it has happened. I know that he's spoken out about this before, and I find it interesting actually that in none of the press it's ever actually been labelled as a parental alienation. It has always been his custody battle essentially, and it's been about, are they false allegations or not? No one's focused on any of the dynamics in that, which I find very interesting when you look back. And I think, when was it that they met when I was very young, sort of late 70s, early 80s. And so I was very young, but I remember as I was growing up that there was a lot of furore around Woody Allen and Mia Farrow and how she was about what had gone on with the stepdaughter. There was a lot of talk around that. It was in the 90s actually, wasn't it? So I wasn't as young as I thought. But there was a lot of furore around that. And if you look at the attachment theory approach to parental alienation, that itself brings a few warnings to light, because the boundaries between Woody Allen and his stepdaughter, granted they are not even a stepdaughter actually, it was the daughter of his ex, so I'm not exactly sure what, he wasn't married to Mia Farrow at that point, so wasn't officially a stepdaughter, but it's kind of but there's that boundary blur that he felt comfortable in starting a relationship with someone who was a almost stepdaughter, but also was so much younger than him. There's a 40-odd year age difference between them. And whilst I'm not here to judge age difference whatsoever, it's still an interesting aspect of attachment theory and family systems, because it does blur those boundaries. Because most of us, we know, parents, children, they're very different, and that includes stepchildren. But for Woody Allen to have blurred that line, that to me is a questionable area of his character. So we've got on the one hand, we've got the fact that the allegations have all been dismissed by hospitals and the medical profession. But on the other hand, you've got this guy who in the past has gone a bit blurry with family systems. So it's interesting from that perspective. And so how would we look at that? What are your thoughts? I mean, what's your instinct telling you about this? Let's just gossip for a minute. What are your instincts telling you about this? And then we'll have a look at the other layers involved. I've got a couple of other things that throw into question Woody Allen's character. Absolutely, yeah, and this is the thing. It could well be that Mia Farrow did feel rejected, that he'd gone off with this younger person, and as we hear time and time again, the child is used to exact that revenge. The narcissistic element of her personality can't deal with the sadness of that separation, and so instead she goes for anger and revenge. So yeah, absolutely, it could be. A couple of things that concern me are the fact that he had that relationship he had those naked photos of his now wife, and they've stayed together, so maybe it is genuine. Yeah, I agree that he's got, this is judgmental, isn't it? But yeah, Woody Allen does have that kind of dirty old man, and he always seems to attract younger women to work with him. And I know a lot of the younger actresses have now come out and said they wouldn't work with him again. So again, we can't go into his characters necessarily, but yeah, it does play on your bias, which we all have. Bias is in place, and bias is an interesting part of parental alienation cases, isn't it? Is this the crying from Dylan? Yeah, I know what you're saying. I do know what you're saying. And I looked really closely. I was really watching. And genuine tears did come out of her eyes. And so, but again, is that crocodile tears? There was. But if it's false memory, which it could be that Mia has repeatedly got her to tell this story, then she would believe it actually, and those would be genuine tears, because she would think that he abused her. She would believe this story. She would feel like she had been abused. So therefore, Yeah, but again, so we don't know. We don't know. Has it been implanted? Has she been coached? Has she had this memory implanted in her? Or has she absolutely 100% aligned with Mia and is just saying it for revenge? Or is it the truth? Woody Allen with the glasses, and I was going to say the big nose, but that's not very nice. But yeah, he's got that older. He has got that older guy, quirky looking. I'm guessing he must be quite charming in person. I'm not a big fan of him. I don't hate him, and I don't love him either. I'm a bit blah about him. But I certainly don't think he's a sexual narcissist, because he just doesn't come across. He's with the cardi and you can imagine the leather patches on his elbow, that kind of thing. He's not a sexual predator of a narcissist. If he is narcissistic, it is more about the status of being. Yeah, and that's the problem, isn't it, Andrew, is that false memories do ring true. The person who has had that memory implanted absolutely believes it. And it's not until a lot of work has been done and someone is able to offer up genuine, factual information that breaks it down. And this is something I'm looking at the moment. I'm looking at doing a research project with the UK's leading guy on false memory, around how do we break down the false memory in parental alienation cases. And this is such a great example of that. If we were able to come up with a system whereby we could find a way that broke through the false memory to reveal the truth, then this could blow the cases like this out of the water, because the child would suddenly be, oh my God, it never happened. Or equally, we could find it did happen, and then we protect a child from abuse. But that, to me, finding that key to unlocking false memories is key in parental alienation. Certainly the cases I'm talking about, where we do have that narcissistic element. Again, polygraph doesn't work because they believe it. If a false memory has been implanted, they believe it, so it would come out as being true. So actually that would go against. So I wouldn't recommend asking for a polygraph, because it could go against you. If it's been implanted and they genuinely believe it, then they're going to tell the truth, and the truth is that they believe they were abused, so it would go against you. And this is something that I know one of the leading guys in this country said about polygraphs. But actually, as we've started to understand more about false memory, we realised that it is a genuinely held belief. That person believes 100% that happened, so a polygraph would just prove that they believed it. So unfortunately, that doesn't work either. Obviously, in those cases where it's clear that there's a lie, yes, a polygraph would work. But in the cases that I'm talking about, where you've got a real malignant, vicious, evil narcissist at play who is so intent on destroying that relationship, then that would break. That would absolutely, false memory sounds very, it doesn't really sum up what it is. It's not, at the end of the day, it's psychological abuse, isn't it? It is psychological abuse. You telling a small child that they were abused is the same as abusing a child, isn't it? If you're telling them that they were abused, just because the physical stuff didn't happen, it happened in their head, because every time they replay it, they're having the same reaction. The brain cannot distinguish between a real and imagined event. And so if they're constantly being told that it happened, they're going to get the same physical symptoms as if it really did happen. Yes, for some, it is going to be an interpretation of events. And obviously we know with young children that they are unreliable witnesses. This is why in all cases, they don't tend to be put up as witnesses. So say for example there was a bank robbery and a school bus full of children were the only ones that saw it, it'd be very unlikely that they would call all of those school children up to give evidence, because we know that it would be very different because of the way that their cognitive ability is, their memory isn't 100% at that age. They wouldn't understand what was going on, so they wouldn't be able to interpret it properly. But yeah, with false memory, it's a combination of all those things. It's a combination of their cognitive abilities, psychological abuse, how they interpret something. And that's why it's so important that we find something that can break that down a little bit, so that we can actually get to the root of what is it a false memory or did it really happen? And I think we can. I've got some ideas. I'm not going to share them yet because I might get shut down. But it's something I'm looking into and I'm going to explore with this guy next week. Is my idea something that would work? And we'll see how we go. But I think that it's a big thing. Like I say, with this one, you have Dylan has been given years and years and years of being told you were abused, it happened here, it was on this date. This is the other thing, she knows the date. Now a lot of people would say, well, that must mean it's true, but actually if you think about it, she was very young at the time. Kids of that age don't know dates, do they? So if someone's told her what a date it was, because a kid wouldn't know that. Kids struggle to know their birthday until they're quite old. So I think that's another thing that stands out for me, is that they're assigning an ability that she may not have had. So someone's added to that. In my case, her mum was drunk, tried to get physical with me, but was so drunk she fell into me and fell over, so I pushed her over, as that's what she had been told. Yeah, exactly. And this is the thing, because if you're in a relationship with a narcissist, it's going to be up and down. It is going to be. There's going to be a lot of rage from them. And a lot of it will be verbal, because they're clever and they know that if they hit you or punch you, then you've got bruises and that. But so they'll be verbal, and there'll be goading involved. They'll be wanting you. They'll want you to hit them. They'll want you to lash out at them, because then it confirms everything that they've always been telling everyone, that you're this awful person. And so things can happen that you didn't do anything wrong, but they kind of, like, if they push you into a corner to try and get out of that corner, you may barge past them. They may bang against a wall, but then obviously they will go, oh my God, did you see that? He was so aggressive with me. He pushed me against the wall. And a child who is too young to understand the complexities of what went on, will remember that they saw mummy or daddy being pushed against the wall, and so they will go with that. And then the more that mummy talks about that, or the more that daddy talks about that, the more that's getting pushed into their brain, that that's what happened. Because you're not going to go over it. The nurturing parent isn't going to keep going over it with their kid. They're not going to keep going over it and going, oh, do you remember what happened? Well, your mummy was coming at me, or your daddy was coming at me, and this and that. You're going to shut up about it because you don't want to traumatise your kid anymore. The narc will go over and over and over it, because they want to make sure that this kid only remembers the bits that they want them to remember. So that's part of the manipulation that's involved in these cases. And obviously with the Dylan Farrow case, we don't know that it wasn't a setup. We don't know that. We don't know that he wasn't left alone, and this was all preempted by her. She decided it was all premeditated, that she wanted to get him done for sexual abuse. So she used Dylan, just as a female and knowing his history, she used him as like bait, essentially. We don't know that. We don't know. That's another thing that might happen. And Dylan remembers some of it, but she doesn't remember all of it, and the rest of it's been told to her. So that's another possibility. But I want to, in the interest of being fair, I want to look at it from the other point of view. And what if Woody Allen is the narcissist? What if Woody Allen is the narcissist and he has been abusing not just Dylan, but actually the other children as well, and he's got the other children to lie for him and support him? They've aligned with him out of fear. That's the other side, isn't it? That's the flip side, is that what if everything Dylan's saying is true, but he's used his power and influence to continue that abuse and to essentially shut her up or make sure no one believed her? What do you think to that? Yeah, I do think the longevity of their relationship is on his side, because when it first came out, everyone was in uproar because the age difference and everything. But yeah, they have stayed together. They've had their own family together. And obviously she supported him through all of this. But again, what if he is the narcissist? What if, and he's very powerful actually, he's a very powerful man in Hollywood. He was voted one of the top 100 most influential people, like number 4 I think he was. Very important person in that industry. So what if he's used that power to keep his dirty secrets? I'm just playing devil's advocate. I'm just saying, because this is what happens, isn't it? This is what happens with parental alienation cases, is that you have to consider both sides. And this is why I struggle with the way the system works, is that we only look at one side. Services will only look at one side. They assume the guilt of one side and they just go with that. And my argument has always been, just reframe that. Just for even if it's just for 10 minutes, reframe it that actually that person that you're accusing, they're the innocent party and the other person is the guilty part. Just reframe it and then see how things slot in that way. And then sometimes that's how cases go. You have to see which fits the evidence the best way, but they don't. They stick with one. Barbara Windsor. Yeah, I think it's not, like I said before, I'm not here to talk about the age gap. The age gap is, all I'm saying is that she was part of the family, in as much as I'm not sure if they were still married at that moment in time, but they were still certainly connected, either through children or marriage. And so even though he's not biologically related, they were still part of that family unit. So the boundaries have been blurred already. Now that may not mean anything. It would just be something that I would consider because what I would do is I would look at attachment. I would look at relationships. I would look at these things and create a history from both sides. And let's say Mia Farrow isn't a saint in her love life either. She was back and forth between partners. Her and Woody Allen didn't even live together in their relationship. So there's a lot of interesting elements to their relationship. And like I say, part of my work would be to assess their history. What was their relationship like with their parents? So we get an understanding, and then things might slot into place a bit easier. Donald Trump narcissist. Yes, Donald Trump is an exhibitionist narcissist. If you watched my video from earlier, Bailey, sorry, that's my dog banging his tail on the radiator. Yes, Donald Trump is an exhibitionist narcissist, and he's very much about the look at me. And yeah, so he has a younger wife because it's a trophy, isn't it? It's about, look how great I am. Everything he has is look at me. Look at me. And he uses his power, and again, we don't know, he might be a wonderful husband, but at the end of the day, he's a narcissist, so he probably isn't, and she's probably with him because she's attracted to the money and the power. Again, I'm making assumptions and huge leaps there, but that's just how I see it from the outside looking in. And I think with regards to age differences, that a lot of people will say age is just a number, and that is true. For me, it's about where are you at that particular moment in your life. Do you want the same things? Do you both want marriage and children? Or if one of you wants one of you wants kids and the other one doesn't, then is that compatible? Or if one of you is older and already had your kids, that's the only different thing for me with age difference, is what's the real need behind it. Are you with someone younger to make you feel younger yourself? Are you with someone younger to get attention? Or is it real, true, honest love? And I guess only the people involved in those relationships know the answer to that. What other similarities do you feel there are around parental alienation? Are there any things that have jumped out at you that you think, that reminds me of my situation? Like I said, we don't know the ins and outs. There's going to be a lot more that comes out, but at the end of the day, only Dylan and Woody Allen know what actually went on that day. I think it's always interesting when there's siblings involved, because sadly, and I know, Andrew, this is in your case, that it comes between siblings. It's not just, two parents who want to hate each other, that's between them, but don't make your children hate one another. Don't do that to them. That's not fair. Siblings should be supportive of one another. They should always remain tight. And in parental alienation cases, often that doesn't happen. One child can get wheedled out as the golden child, and which leaves the others feeling rejected, and they can turn on one another. They can be jealous of one another and feel very very jealous of their siblings and the attention that they think that the other ones are getting, the time that they're missing out on. I think that's the saddest part of this story for me, is that there's a lot of children involved in this. I think Mia had 7 children before she met Woody Allen. Then they had a child together. They adopted. So I think all in all, there's probably about 9 or 10 kids involved in this, and they're all going to be on different sides, and they shouldn't be. Actually, the children should never be made to take sides, I don't think. And that's what hurts me, I think. It's a differing stories from the children and the split family. Yeah. And that's the thing, isn't it? That's why I wanted to talk about it. Because actually what Woody Allen says is exactly what we would say happened in a parental alienation case. That a bitter ex is using the children to wreak revenge. And if that is true, then he has my sympathy, and I hope that the truth does come out, or at least he can live with a clear conscience knowing that he didn't do anything. But then, like I say, you've got the kids that some are on one side, some are on the other. It's damaged those relationships. But again, on the flip side, if Dylan is telling the truth, if she has been abused, then where's the support for her? Where's the support? Rather than saying you're lying, everyone knows you're lying. What if it is true? What does that do for other victims? What if your kid is being abused and she's watching this and thinks, well, there's no point in me telling anyone because no one will believe me? And I think that's really important that we talk about it, that actually, what if she is telling the truth? They could both be narcs, absolutely. And you find a lot of people in the celebrity lifestyle do have narcissistic traits. They may not be fully out and out dangerous narcissists, but they'll definitely have traits. And like I said, Farrow's history isn't squeaky clean either. She was married and then got with Woody Allen and then went back to the other guy, and she's so it's not clear for either of them. They've both got quite interesting relationship histories, and again, this is something that, if it was my case, if I was involved in this, these are all the elements that I would be looking at. I would be taking a family history. I would be looking at how they have formed relationships, what their attachment style is. Because what we find in parental alienation cases, or the most severe forms of parental alienation cases, is that they have a very disorganized attachment with undertones of an avoidance attachment as well. And so that's what I'd be looking for, be asking questions around their history, their family history, their relationship history, so I can try and figure out what attachment style they've got. And that can leave clues, that can lead you to understanding whether there's a mental health issue going on. Are they narcissistic? Have they got borderline personality? So that's what I would be looking at, and I've tried to do as much as I can with Woody Allen. And the internet's a great place, but obviously if it was in person I'd get a lot more information. And like I say, both of them, well, yeah, because we've all got narcissistic traits is very different from having narcissistic personality disorder. Narcissistic traits, we can have them at times in our life. Like, I know I did a lot of online marketing in a few years ago, trying to become a millionaire. Oh, I laugh now. But a lot of that was all about telling yourself how great you are. You listen to any motivational speaker, it's all about bigging yourself up. Boo, you're amazing. Do. But it's so that is a narcissistic quality, isn't it? That bigging yourself up, that idea of being very grand. That is important. If you want to be successful, they say to do those things. So that's a narcissistic trait that can be used to your advantage, but obviously only in certain areas. So I mean, I do my daily affirmations, which I say I'm this, I'm that, but I don't go around to everyone else going, I'm this, I'm that, I'm amazing, but it's just for me, it's just self-talk. Narcissistic personality disorder, and like I say, I can switch that on and off. I can also sit on the set and cry my heart out. Obviously, with everything that's going on at the moment, that happens a lot. But so I can have that swing of emotions. But someone with narcissistic personality disorder, they're like it all the time. This is who they are all the time. So yes, you can have narcissistic traits, and they can be a good thing. But actually having narcissistic personality disorder, it's a very, very conflicting. It's a very, very conflicting disorder, because you have this internal dialogue, which is you're very inadequate. You hate yourself, but to the outside world, you have to put on this show and make everyone else feel crap to make you feel better. So. I know what you're saying, top quality. I do know what you're saying. I think he's Marmite. I think Woody Allen is Marmite. He is you either really like him and admire his work and think he's a creative genius, or you look at him and think you're a bit odd, mate. I'm in the same camp as you. I think he is a bit odd, but I've not watched a great deal of his films, so I can't comment on his creativity. And I certainly wouldn't like to say whether he's guilty or innocent of this when I don't have the facts. Empathy does make the difference. Empathy is the biggest, between psychopaths, sociopaths and narcissists. It's the empathy, the lack of empathy. That's what makes the difference. But they present it in different ways. In my video earlier, the three types, you've got your exhibitionist narcissist who doesn't care that he doesn't care. He's quite happy, or they're quite happy to be, I'm all about me. They're quite happy for you to know that's who they are, because they're all about, I'm who I am. They're openly narcissistic, and it's this, they are literally the grandiose element of it. They equally think that they're crap inside, but they put on such a flash show so everyone will think, no one will see how crap they really are, so they put on a big flash show. The covert narcissists, they express it differently. They still want to cover up the fact that they feel incredibly inadequate as a person, but they do it by latching onto someone who has more status than themselves, and then they use that person's status to give themselves that grandiose idea. They don't believe that they're grandiose, but they attach to someone who is. And the malignant narcissist, it's just nasty for fun. Essentially, their rules weren't made for them. They don't care about anyone, anything. They will hurt you and laugh. They just, they do not want to be part of society. They're not interested in playing nice, and they're not interested in pretending. They are just horrible. And like I said in the video, a lot of them will be in prison because they just can't help themselves. They will commit crimes because they just think, so what? Who cares if someone gets hurt? Yeah. Do you know what? I'm not even sure I've ever seen a Woody Allen film. I probably have, but I couldn't. When I was doing my research earlier, I was like, don't think I've seen that. No, don't ring any bells with me. So, name me a film that I might have seen that's a Woody Allen one. Because, I'm not a big fan. I think he's pretentious, which is a tad narcissistic. But he comes across as being very self-deprecating, which is the covert element. So I think that he's got that. Everyone else thinks I'm great, and I know I'm great, but I'm going to pretend that I don't know I'm great. Do you know what I mean? That kind of thing. I don't like that. See, is there anything else anyone wants to talk about with regards to parental alienation? Ultimately, I was just using the Woody Allen case as a case study for us to look at, because like I said, you can be very objective when it's not your family, when it's not your kids that are involved or your ex. You can actually just look at the facts and sort of be a bit more objective about that. And I hope that we've covered some of the main I don't think I've seen them. And so with the Woody Allen case, just to sort of recap a little bit, the main things for me are the fact that, looking on both sides, we have Woody Allen, who he's had affairs, he's had multiple relationships, he's had crossovers, of which they would, on the Cleckley psychopath checklist, which is still used for sociopaths, psychopaths, narcissists. It's still one of the ideas that that's the one, that he having crossover relationships is one of the factors. So you could say that he does tick one of those boxes. Obviously, he also had a relationship with a much younger steppy daughter kind of person in Sun Yi, but he has remained married to her. They've had a very long relationship and children of their own, so you can say that it wasn't it was genuine. There was genuine love there, so we could potentially take that out, but it does add to the picture. On the flip side, you've got Mia and Dylan. Mia herself has had crossovers of relationships, backs and forth. Dylan could genuinely believe that this happened, and it could have happened. A couple of question marks for me at the fact that she recalls the date and the age that she was. I'm not sure if I wrote it down. I'm not sure how old she was when she alleged this, but quite young, I believe. And she mentioned the date, and a young child doesn't know the date. You don't learn dates until you're older. We learn the time first and dates after. So even if she knew what year it was, it's unlikely she'd know the day, the month, and the year. So that's something that it's not saying it didn't. It would make it a false story, but it would bring up something. It would raise a question for me. The separation of the families, the fact that some kids believe one side, some kids believe the other, jumps out at me as being there's something going on. There's abuse going on somewhere. It's just finding out which side it's from, because children should never be put in that position. Children should never be made. Yeah, 4th of August 92. So how old would she be then? When was she adopted? 78. Oh, that would be when, no, 78. She was adopted. So 14. Oh, she would know the date then if she was 14. No, that's when he got with Sun Yi. So again, I mean, if 92 was when she's saying it happened, that was when he got with Sun Yi. So there's a crossover. I say, those are just the things that I would be wanting to investigate myself. If that was a parental alienation case that landed on my desk, then those are the things that I'd want to look at, and I would be looking at doing family history, looking at their attachment styles, and then just trying to figure out if there's something. The Majeski Stadium. That's what its name of. Yeah, I think this is the trouble. I think that there's some elements. Yeah, I know. She's 32 now, but how old was she when this happened? How old was she when she said that he molested her? If she said it was 92, that was when he got with Sun Yi. So, like I say, just again, there might be crossover there, which is interesting. She was 6 when it okay, yeah, and at 6, I don't think a kid would know a date, and she's stated, I'm sure I read that she stated, or in the interview, it states the specific, states where it was and the exact date that it happened. But I don't think at 6 she would have known. You can remember that. I don't think at 6 you know specific dates, because I don't think you even know your birthday. You might know it's at the beginning of the year or something, but I don't think you'd be able to say my birthday's on the 30th of June and what year. I just don't think that they would at 6. That's just my personal opinion. And she may have been advanced, and she may, but that would just be something that I would question, like I say. With regards to a good note, yeah, I think we need to remember that narcissism is a personality disorder. It's who they are 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It may be dormant. It may be that a trauma can trigger it, but it may be that, or stress, but it will pop out. You will see elements of it. And we can't diagnose. I got an email today from someone asking me if I thought that someone was a narcissist from one email. I'm like, you can't diagnose from an email. It's a collection of behaviours, and I think we're all. You get a feeling for people as well. I think I certainly. It's your gut instinct, and this is why. This is why this case is interesting, because my natural instinct is I don't like Woody Allen. But that doesn't mean that this happened. If I was purely to go with my gut, then I would side with Dylan. But as an impartial investigator, I would look at the whole picture, and I would try and put my bias to one side completely, go through everyone's history, get all the facts, all that kind of thing. But that's where bias comes in, and this is the thing with Woody Allen, it'll go for and against him, because some people will have, like we've all spoken, some people will have that bias towards him. Some people will have already made their minds up that he's a dirty old man, or that he's a creep, or that he's rude, or whatever else people are saying about him in Hollywood. They will have that bias towards him. So any case, you can't be impartial when they're celebrities either. Like a jury, for example, on a case, they wouldn't be able to sit if they knew the person. But when they're celebrities, it's out there, it's in the press. You've already got a judgment, and so the natural bias plays out when they're well-known people, and it's being aware of that. But there's also bias within domestic cases. So in just normal everyday people, not celebrities, there's biases that take place in those cases, and there could be cases right now of parental alienation that are being influenced by this Woody Allen story. People who are drawing conclusions from what they're reading in the press, and they may be siding with Dylan, and they may be going, she's absolutely, yeah, I've seen the video, she's absolutely, it happened, Woody Allen is a creep and he did it. And they might then get a case. You may get a Kafka's worker who's read that in the Sunday papers over breakfast, and then they go in Monday morning and they've got a case, and they go in, and psychologically they've carried that bias into that case. And this is why it's so important in the training that I do, is actually teaching people to recognise where their bias might lie and how to put that to one side. Because you can't have bias when you're dealing with people's lives, because it's unfair, and you need to just focus on the actual evidence, not your interpretation of it. And like I said, I am trying to do some work with a guy about false memories, because I think that will make a massive difference in breaking down some of the cases where it has had false memory implanted. If we can find a way to break them down, then that'll be a really powerful way for us to tackle parental alienation cases in the future. But like I say, with this, I'd be looking at, absolutely. Anyone in a position of power can have narcissistic traits. Anyone can have narcissistic traits. They walk among us freely. And again, that could work. That could work different ways. So the judge might be narcissistic, but he might want to make his name. He might want to be seen as being this forward-thinking, father-friendly or mother-friendly parental alienation expert, and actually, for his own benefit, be really good and on the ball. Equally, they could just take a dislike to you and decide, my way rules and rule against everything you say. And it's about, if the narcissist isn't willing to recognise their own, if the narcissist judge isn't willing to recognise their own bias, that's when trouble can come into cases. Is that they've got this bias, it's pretty obvious that they have a bias, but they're not willing to listen. Well, no, Parental Alienation is all over the world. I actually got an email about someone from Romania today. It's happening everywhere. Because narcissists are everywhere. People with personality disorders are everywhere. It's not a geographical problem. It's just the US were a lot faster at catching on to what was going on. A lot of the research around it has come out of the US. Gardner originally, and then Childress has come out. So a lot of the work's been done over there, but it happens all over the world where you have that family structure. I mean, if you look, maybe if you look in some of these tribal communities, perhaps it doesn't exist there, or it's deemed as being culturally acceptable. I don't know. I'm not an expert on those things, but certainly in the Western world, when we have our traditional family structure, then it happens all over the world. I know what you're saying. Donna's saying if you have a guardian or social services worker who is a narcissist, they will only see the point of view and side with the narcissist. I think more. I don't think it's necessarily a narcissist would side, because a narcissist is their own power. That's how they see it. However, they may go with the majority, or may feel that wherever they can exert the most pain, depending on like what sort of narcissist it is as well. So if you have, I'll be honest, and if any of you have ever looked at this, I don't know whether a social worker or a guardian worker would necessarily be narcissistic. What they might be is apathetic, which means that they're not willing to stand up, so they will side with the narcissist. It's part of another triangle where you've got the empathetic person, the narcissist, and then you've got an apath. And the apath will basically, they'll just be a minion of the narcissist. So it won't be that the narcissist is going out to it won't be that the guardian or the social worker is out to necessarily hurt. They're just not going to stand up to the narcissist, so they side with the narcissist, and they're called apathetics, apaths, as opposed to the empath. Yes, Satan's army are growing fast. Narcissism is cult-based, so another fellow arsonist. I do disagree with you there, Donald. I think that narcissists actually are self-motivated. They are only interested in their own interest. They wouldn't necessarily jump on someone else's cause unless it helped them in any way. Like I said, I've just said that about the apath. They can do just as much damage as the narcissist, but their motivation is different. And one of the ways that you can look, I'm actually reading a book all about this at the moment, so which is why it's on top of my head. But the apath, essentially, they're like, if you look at Hitler, for example, a lot of people in Germany at that time, or a lot of his army, they may not actually have agreed with him, but because they were apaths, they just went along. They went along and they did all his bidding. They were horrendous, and they killed innocent people. They tortured. Well, we know what they did, but the army themselves weren't narcissistic. There may have been some within there that were, but on the whole, they were apaths. Obviously, good old Brits over here, we said, we're empathetic, we're not having that. So we went against them. And yeah, and so you've got the narcissists with the apaths, and then you've got the empaths who stand against them. And so I think in a lot of parental alienation cases, it's not so much that the people around, lying monkeys is another one, enabler is another one, but I think they're more likely to be apaths than narcissists. Because like I say, narcissists are self-motivated. They're only interested in their own gain. And so actually it's more likely that they're just following a leader, essentially. The narcissist in a parental alienation case is the one who pulls all the strings. Apath just goes along with that. They're dangerous because they don't stand up and they don't dare to say anything different, but they're not narcissistic in their motivation. They just can't be bothered to stand up and be counted and say what's wrong. We are unfortunately at our hour. Thank you so much. If you've got any more questions, obviously pop them up, I will answer them. But if not, we shall call it a day. I really appreciate you being here. If you could do me a huge favour, click the subscribe button. The channel is getting better known out there. We're getting more and more people watching, and this is the only way that we're going to defeat this. This is the only way we're going to break down parental alienation, and we're going to raise awareness of narcissistic parents, is if we talk about it and if we share. So by clicking subscribe on my channel, you are helping me to get word out there. You are helping me to get my videos in front of more people. So click subscribe, like, comment on any of the others, share with other people, tell them about what we're doing. I'm doing all this to make a dent in what's going on, to change perception, because like I say, this whole Woody Allen thing, not once has parental alienation been mentioned, other than when Andrew, I didn't even know it was going on, if I'm honest. Andrew wrote in my group about it, and once I started reading it, I was like, damn it, this stinks of parental alienation. And yet it's not been mentioned in the press or anything, and so we need to get parental alienation to that point where people are going, that sounds like a case of parental alienation. That's where we want it to be. So that's why I do these, is to get people talking, get it out there. And so I appreciate you being here. And I appreciate you asking questions. I appreciate you getting involved. It would be a very boring hour if it was just me talking, and I wouldn't have a voice by the end of it. So I thank you so much. Please keep supporting the channel. Means a lot to me, but it also does help in the long run as well. So thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, whether you are Sunday morning or like here in the UK, Sunday evening. Take care, everyone, and I will see you next Sunday at 8 p.m. for a next instalment of Parental Alienation Exposed. Take care, everyone. Good evening. Bye-bye.